Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Quantum Leap. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, I really like that this is a very emotional episode. Obviously, Ben jumped in the middle of a very complicated situation because Naomi and John, they're getting a divorce because things are complicated. And I thought it was interesting because Ben was saying like, wait, I remembered. Like he knew that there was going to be a pretty bad earthquake. So he was able to get him and Naomi out of there. I mean, who knows how things would have played out naturally. I mean, they probably would have been fine. But I think the whole situation with Jason didn't play out well. Either way. Also, the actress who plays Naomi is Jewel, and I'm going to butcher her last name because I'm not sure if it's like Stady or is it State, because her name's spelled like, I think it's Staite maybe, or flip the T and an I. I don't know if like the I is silent, so it might be just like State. I don't know. Just the interesting timing of this episode is because a show she's on called Family Law is currently airing on the CW. I mean, it's a Canadian show, so like the first two seasons have already aired, but it's just like we're only just getting it down in the States. So it's just interesting timing because like some of the elements of that, her character of Abigail in that show correlate so much with her character of Naomi in this episode. But nevertheless, it is a husband and wife trying to find their son because it's like, right, with all the chaos that's going on in the city, it's like, we got to get home. We got to find Jason, make sure he's okay. Because Naomi's like a doctor. She's making sure she's helping out people as much as she can. And so they go home trying to find Jason, but then like there's the family photo that's ripped up. It's like, but did Jason know? It's like the way Naomi talked about it, it's like no one should know about the divorce. Like this is our first time like really talking about it. Well, turns out Jason potentially overheard his mom when she was talking to a lawyer about it. So it's like, right, we got to rush home because most likely he said he was going to go home, probably back to their old place, was it in Oakland, because that's where they were, and they moved to like San Francisco, and he was like, that must be what he meant. So they're on foot trying to make their way there. And I love the parallels to this episode because obviously everything going on between Jason and Naomi correlates to everything between Ben and his mom, because apparently he never really talked to Addison about it, but him and his, like, things were complicated with him and his mom. His mom died when he was in high school, but he never really talked about it. I guess it's just his dad kind of abandoned him or something like that, because that's kind of all we really got on a dad front. It's like, right, he wasn't in your life. That's all we got. But his mom moved him here when he was like about 9, and sadly, the last time Ben talked to his mom, it was an argument. It's always that sad thing. And I think and this is, you're at such a young age, you never think about mortality. You never think like this could be the last time you ever talk to someone. That's the sad thing. Like, and when you're at such an angsty age where you kind of lash out, you don't have the wisdom to know like, yeah, like death is a thing. Like you never know when someone could like, and I think that's a hard lesson even adults struggle with sometimes. It's like, right, sometimes like, always make sure you tell the people you love that you love them, because you never know what's going to happen. Life is a bitch. Let's just put it at that. Life is a bitch sometimes, and it can sideswipe you at any point in time. And sadly for Ben, the last time he talked to his mom, they had that argument, and when he came back home, she died from an aneurysm. It's like Jesus. It's just the thing, and it would be the thing that just hits suddenly, and it's just like, what can you do about it? It's like that sucks even more so. And for him, it's like he never got a chance to say goodbye, and that's why he's extra motivated to fix things between Naomi and Jason, because it's like, right, I don't want him taking for granted Des being so mad at his mom that he never has a chance to tell her that he loves her, that he gets to apologize. He's doing this not only for Jason's sake, but also Naomi's sake, because she needs this, because she blames herself. She's like, I moved us to San Francisco because I thought it was a better job opportunity. I thought it would fix everything, but I took Jason away from his friends and everything. She feels like, and he's angry at me for it. It's just like, I thought this would be a better place, but like all it is, like Jason's just mad at me all the time, which Ben understands. He lashed out at his mom, making him uproot his life. And she was like, right. She always not pressured him, but it's almost like, oh my God, you're so special. And so he's super smart, but he got a report card full of B's, she's like, probably disappointed in him because you're like, there's a part of your brain that's kind of like, oh yeah, it's kind of like that, the stereotypical, like, plenty of Asian families will talk about just like, oh, it's kind of a disappointment that you got all B's. But it's also because his mom knows he's capable of so much more, and he purposely got all those B's because he was hoping that it was his way of rebelling, saying like he hated living in this place, and he was so mad at her, hated her for like making like, he's like, I just wanted to be a normal kid, but you want me to be so much, and like the pressures of that, and that argument, it's like, right, he's like, I don't want history to sadly repeat it. I don't want things to happen for Naomi and Jason. And I talked about this previously. I feel like everything that Ben goes throughout these leaps are all about, the stories are meant to prepare him for something more. Like, because obviously it's like there's once again the percentages of him where he ends up landing in the grand scheme of this mapped out situation, which we will talk about later because some interesting theories came up in this episode about what the end result of that might be. But also, like, the fact is, once again, like, Ben kind of leaping into, saved the day when it came to, like, saving that family from that car, and just everyone, like, I think that's kind of a beautiful thing of, like, people coming together to help. And I was scared with the whole Naomi thing. I was like, no, like, that can't happen. And Addison helps with, and I like that she's like, all right, follow my trajectory, and like has like his hologram like thing kind of pump up. It's like, all right, put your hand all the way here and then come down with as much force to kind of get her heart pumping again. So, but luckily, when Ben was able to make sure Naomi was okay, rushed to get Jason, but like one of their neighbors in their old house, like the building they used to live in, is stuck in there. So Ben goes to rescue him. He's like, yeah, but is he in there? It's like, luckily he has Addison, the hologram, like being able to just easily walk through. He's like, okay, he's in there. Ben ends up getting stuck under a pillar, but Jason comes in to help him, and so together they're able to make it out of there. But saving Jason wasn't enough, because it's like, right, him and his mom still never reconcile, but it's like, no, your mom cares about you, she loves you, everything she's done is for your sake. You might not realize it now, but give it time. And it's like, I don't want you to look back on this moment and regret it, because you will, and that regret will stay with you forever, that you handle things this way. And luckily, it does seem like him and his mom reconciled. Even Addison saying that at the end of the day, that in the future, eventually Jason would get into like architecture and stuff, and that he would basically be one of the people that kind of like creates like support beams in buildings to kind of protect during earthquakes. Like, he's the one that kind of like furthered that along. So it all works out, and it's this beautiful thing. Like, obviously, it isn't a thing of like, okay, you're trying to save John and Naomi's marriage, but first and foremost, like, it's like, even if their circumstances are what they are, who knows? Like, things could change in the future, but it could simply be like no, like, they might stay divorced, and it's probably for the better. But it's also like, right, we're still a family regardless of what our dynamic is. Whether, Naomi and John are still together, they still love their son wholeheartedly, and they'll be there to support him. And knowing, like, he has a good relationship with his mom, it all works out in the end. And I think that's the main purpose of it. And just Ben trying to call up his mom, he's like, yeah, I just want to, all he was able to do is tell her, like, hello, like, mom. And that's all he got to say before he got to leave. But also, was it the Korean word for mom? It's like, was it uma? I don't know why, like, I like it in Korean. It just, I don't know, it just, there's like a sweetness to it, like uma, like there's something to that. I don't know. I might be butchering the pronunciation, because I'm probably saying, I think you say it just like you would say like Uma, like Uma Thurman. It's kind of in the same vein. The only reason why I know that word is because of Bobby Lee, because his own mom, like, obviously, so it's like, yeah, that's the only, because I think that might have been the first time I'd ever heard the Korean word for mom before, and I was like, I don't know, it has a nicer ring to it than mom. I mean, it means the same thing, sure, but it's just like, I don't know, I don't know, that's also the beautiful thing about different cultures and languages. Like, obviously, it's like, it all says the same thing, but it's like, it's pronounced differently, so it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's just like these little like things in other languages or just like cultures that it's just like when it comes to like family and stuff like that, which I think, like to me, like for example, like beta getting used as kind of like almost kind of like a young one. I don't think it's necessarily has to even be your own children. It could be like, beta, like as in like young one. It kind of like, I think in, maybe like Indian or like Muslim families. At least that's how like I interpret it just from Miss Marvel. So it's just it's kind of in that same vein. But like I say, I think this was sometimes kind of a very like heartfelt episode in that regard. I mean, truth be told, it's been a big part of Ben's story so far is helping out these other people and their family circumstances. Like last episode, it was a granddaughter and a grandfather. I was also just kind of like helping out like a small town, but this was like a lot smaller story of like, yeah, you help people out along the way. Naomi helped people out along the way, but also you repair the relationship between a daughter and their, a mother and their son. I mean, obviously everything with, what was it, episode 3, the boxing situation, it was like, right, that was saving the life of like, one brother, you know, and the other brother kind of being, it is these very like, you know, personal stories is what I think makes them so grand, is those personal touches to them. So but this episode in particular, because even later on, Jen's like, yeah, I'm going to call out my mom. Like this sleep was kind of a bit of a doozy. Because even Addison says both of her parents are alive, but even she has like, because I thought that was going to be the end result. Like, Addison didn't really add anything onto it, but she was just kind of like, because Jim was like, yeah, I'm going to call my mom. Addison didn't really say anything about her parents, but all she says is like her parents are alive, but it's complicated. So we don't know what that necessarily means. So that was a really, really interesting development on that front. I do wonder, I mean, I don't think Ben can change anything. Like once again, sadly, it's an aneurysm type of thing. Like, there's nothing that can really be done in that regard. So, like, there's no, like, saving. But for him, it's just like, right, she's alive right now. I want to be able to talk to her and being able to hear her voice again, you know? Which also has to cut you deep, too, because it's like, right, you didn't even remember your own mom until now. Like, not trying to blame her or anything. I'm just saying, like, it is a sad thing of you don't even have memories of your own mom. You know, and that coming, like, that being, like, your memories, it's like, right, you're remembering your mom, but then also you remember, like, well, because he found out she died first and then remembered her, and now remembering, like, right, what happened before she died, like, that's a lot to kind of, like, get, like, that's a lot of emotional weight kind of hitting you all at once, and I don't know, I just thought this was just a powerful episode in that regard. But on a more present side of things, they find out about Leaper X, and I love that we're trying to make this a thing, and even later on, it's like, oh, this Richard guy, is he, you know, and Jen's like, go ahead, and Ian's like, you know, you want to say it, he's like, is this our Leaper X, and they kind of dap each other up, like, yeah, we've made this a thing now, but I thought that was such an interesting development, where it's like, okay, we're trying to theorize, like, okay, how this whole thing works out, like, okay, who could this be, and they kind of run through, like, the possibilities of one being a situation of this is some other foreign government doing this, but it's like, no, like, if this was the case, Magic's like, the CIA would have let me know, like, if the CIA was aware of something else like this being possible, like another country having like this in play. But then even Addison's like, yeah, but the person also had like an American accent too, so it doesn't seem like that's a likely element. Well, 2, it's like there's a private company, but it's like, no, before we even did this project, we made sure to tight-lip this down to make sure nothing leaked out to any other, which I even love Ian being like, oh, thinking about Elon Musk or Zuckerberg having access to this technology. Ugh. I'm like, oh, yeah. But then you also have, which there's still a possibility for 2, but 3 is the real kicker of, what if this person actually uses this machine? It's like, no, like, how would they use it at the same time Ben did without us realizing? It's like, well, what if they're from the future? I was like, now that's interesting, especially with what we learned this episode. It's like, it seems like Jen's theory on that front might be the golden ticket here. It might be the right one, because it's like, right, we have no idea who runs this project 5, 10, 15 years from now. With the whole Richard thing, it seems like it's going to be a lot sooner in the future. So that's what I'm curious about, because the person, like, Richard ran into, like, Richard is Leaper X, right? And it's like, oh, they assume that Ben's following them, but it's like, well, you know exactly who Ben is and everything, but it's like, do you know that Ben has amnesia? So that's why I'm like, do you really believe that he's like, or are they completely unaware of it? Because maybe that's a side effect that's no longer an issue in the future, maybe they kind of rectify that. So anytime you use a quantum leap, because having never seen the original series, I don't know if Sam went through that same circumstance or if he like maintained all his memories. Is it just this version that happened, or was it even in the OG version of the project that led to the amnesia situation? But like Richard knew exactly who Ben was and everything, like, so that's why I'm like, maybe it had to gotten rectified. And like I said, because it is Richard, I mean, you still don't know year-wise and how much time frame it is, but it still is a situation of it can't be that far into the future. So either way, that seems to be the current running theory. So Magic and Jen, she actually put on a display for him, like, yeah, I'm gonna kind of like simplify it for you, and using these dolls, for example, and it's just kind of like, right, that reflective chamber is where Addison goes in to see Ben. That's why when she's as her hologram self and she's talking to Ben, she still sees Ben as Ben, not the person they've leaped into. But the same thing's applicable there, because that person's able to see Ben, and Addison saw their face too. So if Ben is seeing them for who they are because of the reflective chamber, and the same thing for Addison, it's like, because that's that person's real face. I was like, they're not even leaped. I mean, that they are leaped inside of somebody, but that face they show because of the reflective chamber showed their real face. I was like, oh, that's actually a really neat and interesting detail. So they go and meet Richard, who is a Marine, but he seems completely unaware of what's going on. Like, cause they're dancing around it. They're like, right, you can't like work with any like other like private company or other foreign like entity while you're serving in the U.S. military, like even as a Marine. He's like, yeah, I understand that. Like, he's like, I haven't had any time off. I've been like, today's like my first free time in such a long time. But he's eager to do whatever he can for his country, because he is someone that's like, yeah, like my family came here when I was at such a young age. He might have been the one that actually came here at 9 and not Ben, but that might be what I might have conflated those. But he talked about the fact is that he joined the military because it gave him what the U.S. couldn't give him, and that was citizenship. And so for him, it's like, that's why he's like, I love this country and I will fight for this country, because, like being able to have the ability to vote and everything, like it means a lot to him. So at the end of the day, he seems so sincere. So it doesn't seem like he's aware of all of this, but it doesn't change the fact that eventually at some point, it could be that eventually, everything that they dealt with last episode kind of comes back to bite them, where it's like someone higher up the chain finds out about what they've been mixed up in and decides to like take the project from like Magic, Ian, Addison, and Jen, and someone else steps in, and that's when Richard gets involved. Maybe. But then like we get into the timey-wiminess of it all. It's just like, it's all interesting because it's like, right, Richard hasn't gone back in time yet, but eventually from the future, he will go back in time and run into Ben. So that means they had to have probably had, or he could have gotten a lowdown on Ben, because that could be like after Ben's done what he's trying to do, and maybe like, well, because he's saying Ben's following him, but it's like, technically Ben got into the thing before. I mean, well, not unless Richard in the future got into use the quantum leap before Ben did. But it's like, oh god, the timey-wiminess of it all, because it's like, right, Ben's doing this in 2022, but maybe some knowledge of the future led Ben going like, no, we need to do this now. So technically Ben did it first, but technically Richard did it first in the future. Technically speaking, maybe, I don't know. All the timey-wiminess of it all. Because even Ian's like, how do we know we didn't like make this all come full circle? Because us finding out about Leaper X, which obviously Magic's not a fan of, so we have to just go back to calling him, by his name. But we found out about Richard, right? So what if you and Magic going to go see Richard is what set this all in motion? That it's a like reciprocal thing, like not reciprocal, but it's all part of it's an Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. It's all a loop where it's like, right, we find out, we said it, we played the dominoes because it's like, right, Richard is in the dark about everything. Well, what if your meeting with him eventually makes him decide that he's going to look deeper into this, and that eventually leads down the road at some point in time to him getting mixed up in the quantum leap stuff and leaping, but then Jen's like, right, she's like, I don't have time to worry about the future. We got to focus on the present, and that includes Ben and Addison in the past. And then she kind of stops, and then Ian's like, our lives are weird. And she's like, yeah, I know, I heard it when I said it. You know, it's like, yeah, it's an interesting development, especially when Ian brings it up. Like, right, he's like, we theorized beforehand all the jumping or leaping that Ben is doing. He's basically slingshotting himself to basically, in very layman's term, build up enough speed and momentum to jump shot himself to any point in time he wants. They're thinking like he's building up enough speed to get to the past, is always like super deep in the past was kind of their theory. But now Ian's like, what if he's actually trying to get to the future? Like, how far in the future, we have no idea. The same thing for oh god, I'm blanking on her name now. Cause we still haven't circled back to her since like she hacked into like Ziggy. God, I'm blanking on her name now. But we still haven't circled back to what she's involved in, what her part to play in all of this actually is. Once again, why she was willing to work with Ben, like what's going on there. Still that enigma we haven't like solved. But also like, once again, like why is he going to the future? Is it because I thought like he was going into the past, like, it's like, is it have to do with his Richard situation, or is it something else entirely? Does Richard assume it? I mean, it could be that in the future, Richard gets sent back in time to change some stuff. It might be the U.S. government's like, well, we can change history to fit what we kind of want it to be. Like if you're familiar with the NBC show Timeless, there's the whole Rittenhouse element of it. Like there could be a similar thing going on here. I mean, it might not even be the U.S. government. It might be some other entity or someone manipulating the U.S. government into kind of allowing that to happen. And now Ben's trying to get to the future to stop them from sending someone back in time to change things for the worse. That's my current thinking, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see. What's also interesting, too, because of this episode, Addison's feelings about Ben are not changing. In fact, they're growing, because she's like, right, I loved Ben before, but that Ben never was as open and vulnerable as this Ben is. And she's like, I might be falling. It is weird because it's almost like falling in love with a different person entirely. It's like, yeah, because there's so much Ben never really told her. And this version of Ben is, you know, it's like, it is the complications of, I think, knowing what you know. You know, it's like, right, without your memories, like how much of, like, because your memories end up inferring a lot of who you are, right? But like, you know, the argument is like how much of your memories define your soul, who you are at your core, that even without your memories, are you still you to some extent, you know? Once again, another Kingdom Hearts reference. It's like, yeah, how like Sora was manipulated as his memories are kind of taken from him, but at the heart of it, Sora was still Sora, memories or no memories kind of type of situation, no matter how the organization tried to manipulate him into doing what they wanted, right? So there's an element of that kind of similar here with Ben, where it's like, right, because with his memories, there's a lot of baggage about like, right, there's so much I have to keep to myself. I can't, you know, the hurt about like everything with his mom made him not want to really talk about it. But it's like without those memories and stuff like that, and kind of like reshaping who he is, makes him like now more vulnerable and more willing, because you don't have those years of memories of making you go like, right, your memories and your experiences kind of shape who you are. So now you're able to reshape yourself in a different way because you're not held back, but those memories don't exist that shaped you into who you are. You're just like the good natured person Ben is to his core, without like the need to keeping all these secrets and dealing with any trauma and stuff like that. It's there, but I'm not explaining it well, but I just thought that was kind of an interesting development in its own right. And I did love this, our stinger at the end where Ben's leaped into a new body, and I was like, and it was like, wait, are we? But then it turns out it's Halloween. I was like, oh. I was like, wait, you're an adult. Like, it's like, I don't see you trick or treating. So I'm like, are we going with it? And it's like, oh, thank you, Father so-and-so, for coming. And I was like, right. I was like, are we going full exorcist here? He turns in and it was like, the door says 669. I'm like, oh, that's neat. I was like, oh, I mean, obviously with everything going on, I would assume it'd be like a 66. And then immediately as I'm thinking that, the 9 turns upside down to a 666. And I'm like, nice. But also like nice before, because 69. Anyway, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh man, perfect timing. I was like, oh, they almost nailed it. You know, that would have been a perfect episode for like Halloween or whatever. And I'm like, idiot, Halloween is literally next Monday. So I was like, oh, it's actually super perfect timing. It's like, you moron, these are networks. They typically, sometimes plan that out, you know. It makes you wonder, do shows ever rearrange stuff? Probably not. Just because of the stinger. I mean, it could just always be edited that way. Like, they release stuff in a very specific order, and maybe they probably like tell networks they would like stuff to kind of like, it's probably a collaboration effort of like, right, let's try and get this episode that's like Halloween adjacent or directly Halloween related coming out on exactly Halloween, especially because like it happens to fall this year on the same day that those episodes air on Monday. So it's beautiful how that worked out. So I am very excited to see what that episode turns into next week. What that's all going to be about. That's going to definitely be interesting. But I'm just excited in general to see where all of this takes us going forward with the next leap, but also like what Ben's ultimate goal is. This whole situation with Leaper X or Richard, where all that ends up taking us is going to be fascinating to see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.